welcome to this particular panel discussion. I have with me two brilliant investors, Sanjay Nath from Blume Ventures and Yash Hemaraj from BGV. Before we start the panel discussion, I would like to first give a brief introduction about Arka Venture Labs and what we do, and then I'll quickly introduce both Sanjay and Yash. To give a brief introduction about Arka Venture Labs, we are basically a B2B focused fund, accelerator fund. What we do is that we invest in Indian B2B tech product companies who are looking into the US markets. And we also invest in US startups, again, B2B startups who have offices in India. What we do is that we provide funding, we provide mentoring, and we provide connects to the Valley ecosystem. We started in August 2018, and so far we have made 9 investments, and we have we started off with 3 anchor investors, and they are Blume Ventures, and BGV and Emergent. And from Blume, we have Sanjay Nath, who's representing Blume Ventures, and from BGV, we have Yash Hemaraj, who's representing F50 Global Ventures. So a quick introduction to Sanjay Nath. Sanjay is the co-founder and managing partner of Blume Ventures. Blume Ventures has been rated as one of the top 4 funds consecutively over the last 4 years by analysts. They have 100 plus investments. Sanjay is on the board of quite a few startups like Tricog, which is in the healthcare space, THP, and also Grey Orange. F50 Global Ventures is a B2B focused fund based out of the Valley, and Yash is a partner there. And Yash is on the board of companies like Tagnos, Totango, 60 Bytes, Macrometa, OneMob, and so we'll basically have a very interesting, and both of them are actually representing boards of companies which are in the healthcare space. So we'll have a very interesting discussion around the trends that they are looking into, and what are the things that they foresee in this particular space. So first of all, I'm basically going to start off with some of the trends which I have been seeing. A quick introduction before starting Arka Venture Labs along with the 3 funds. I was with IBM. I had a long stint of 17.5 years, and I had the opportunity to work on several solutions which were related to healthcare, and I also worked with quite a few startups in the healthcare space. I'll start off with some of the things that I saw, and then basically I pass on the question to Yash and Sanjay. So in terms of the typical trends that I saw was around like AI getting used in the healthcare space. And within AI, I would say that there were 2 broad classifications of the usage of AI in the healthcare space. So one was basically around the data that is coming into the systems, and systems making sense out of the data, and then able to do a diagnosis based on the symptoms that one would feed in, as well as the reports that particular patient has. For example, could be the pathology lab reports, or it could be around the past history of the patients, and then have the ability to help the doctor to say what could be the plausible cause of that particular symptoms. Then there was there's quite a bit of usage of visual AI in terms of image recognition in the healthcare space, where companies were using it for analyzing mammography charts, as well as blood samples, and then coming out with analysis of what's the platelet count, or what's the bilirubin count, or whether the patient has diabetes or stuff like that. And there was a whole lot of other companies which were making sense of the data. They were able to predict based on the past history of the patient, what is the propensity of the particular person to have, let's say, heart disease or a kidney disease or any other anomaly that they can look out for. And companies were also using data from different sources and correlating the data, and then finding out, giving an actionable insight to physicians, especially from the data that is coming out from the machines of different ICU machines. So I'll probably stop here, and then I'll ask Yash in terms of, Yash, You have been in the board of a company which is in the healthcare space. Can you tell in terms of what are the trends that you're seeing in this overall healthcare space? And can you talk about the company that you are on the board of? I'll start off with you and then I'll ask Sanjay later.
Thanks, Radhesh. Thanks for that wonderful introduction to both Arka and the firms BGV and Blume. BGV, to kind of add to a little bit of introduction to what you are saying, we are an enterprise-focused venture firm. We invest in generally cross-border companies that are coming out of Israel, France, India, etc., help them make a transition to the Valley. And we invest in this concept called Enterprise 4.0. When you take a look at what Enterprise 4.0 is, that's a persona of a company that is building on top of AI algorithms being used to deliver value for the users. But they don't stop over there. They use a lot of intelligent workflow automation in order to take those insights that the AI platforms can generate and then deliver continuous value on top of it. So you're not just coming up with the best prediction or the best insight that you have, but you're also helping the users of this technology to use it in their everyday workflows. And the very important component to all of this is the data. Having the right data for the right analysis, as well as collecting the right data from the right workflows. So that improves the way these three kind of blend together: the workflow, the AI algorithms, and the data. Right. So, and what we are seeing is more and more of this Enterprise 4.0 technologies are vertical, because the data is more. You want to collect high fidelity data. The data is becoming more and more vertical. So if you want to deliver an AI application within a healthcare organization, the data that is needed for the training, the data that is needed for the predictions, the data needed for the workflow automation are vertical, in the sense that you need the data from the healthcare industry in order to deliver the right outcomes in that industry. And even again, like the workflows are also very verticalized. And in these overall things, what we see is we need to have a full stack solution, because verticals such as healthcare organizations, they don't have staff like a Google or a Facebook sitting to take these components and put a whole solution together by themselves. So you need to look at it as a full stack solution where the end-to-end experience is seamlessly delivered, right? So this is what we look for in our companies. So I'm on a board of one such company called Tagnos. So Tagnos is a healthcare IT solution for clinical logistics. So there are many processes that are happening in the healthcare organization. You can look at care. The care is very fragmented because data is very much in silos. There is some communication tools out there, but having the right workflow automation between the tools is missing. So there can be so many inefficiencies within a healthcare care delivery. For example, there's a patient who is in surgery, but none of the staff know what is happening within each of those operating centers. Or a patient needs to be moved into an ICU, but you don't know whether the assets that are needed for that particular patient is there in the clinical or in the ICU setting that they want the patient to be moved to. So there is a lot of opportunities for improving clinical logistics, and that is where Tagnos falls into. What Tagnos does is it captures real-time data from using sensors within the hospitals, and it brings staff, that is the nurses and the doctors, assets, which are the ICUs, the beds, the ventilators, etc., and the patients in a very intelligent workflow. So in today's world, in the post-pandemic world, this has become almost a must-have within the hospitals, because contact tracing, which patient came in contact with which staff, or which staff handled which patients, or you used a ventilator on one patient, where all was it used prior to this. So that intelligence is very, very important. So this is what Tagnos does. It provides a very scalable, elegant platform for delivering an Enterprise 4.0 solution into the healthcare organization. So I see a lot of such opportunities where you can take a fragmented care workflow and make it into an outcome-based very seamlessly integrated workflow, which improves at the end of the day both the operational efficiencies of healthcare organizations as well as the patient experience. And this is very important within healthcare organizations right now.
Got it. Got it. Thanks, Yash, for the introduction to PPV and also talking about what you have seen in Diagnose. Sanjay, would you like to talk about the few companies that you are on board where you have invested? What kind of, you can probably quickly tell about what they do and what trends you are seeing as such overall in healthcare and in the technology space?
Sure, Radhesh. Thanks for having me and Blume Ventures on. Pleasure to be here along with Yash. So, I'll start from the trends first, and then I'll get into the two companies. Yash made an interesting point. He talked about must-haves, right? And, we think that healthcare, for example, is ripe to use these advances in technology to protect, but also, predict, the onset of diseases. So I'd say that healthcare is a perfect industry where this is a painkiller, not a vitamin, right? It's a must-have, not a nice-to-have. So a couple of thoughts. I think one is, even if we were, I think, COVID, unfortunately, while we are all part of it, has brought this intersection of AI and healthcare to the fore, right? Today, it's a must-have. So if you look at trends like, let's say, telemedicine, or let's say the whole, enterprise behavior moving to the cloud, which is always the case. But, and also going back, if you think about, the whole outsourcing industry, it was always more a services model, right? Where you, let's say, you put data scientists or clinical research, scientists to work. But today you've got rich data, right? And if you look at developing markets like India and of course developed markets like the US and Europe, I think the advent and the availability of data has the combination of large sets of data with AI and ML has brought healthcare obviously to the fore. So I'll just bring those trends into two of our companies. One of them is Tricog, which is you could think of Tricog as a virtual cardiologist platform, right? And it's actually an integrated full stack. It has both hardware and software component. The problem set it's really solving for is if you look at heart attacks, right? A lot of obviously because of poor health hygiene. Especially in developing markets like India, heart attacks are on the rise. But very often that golden hour, right, in that hour before you get it, is when the critical care is needed. And what Tricog does is it really predicts heart attacks and helps you predict and protect, right, against that. And so, for example, the hardware component is really a set-top box machine that sits atop a GE ECG, for example. But by hardware, as we know, by itself is commoditized, right? So what it does is then it's got a software layer. Yash was talking about sensors, right? That uses there's a hardware device like a Holter, and that goes up to the cloud where you have teams of cardiologists and also data scientists that are analyzing data. They've applied for FDA approval, and today sitting on as many as about 3.5 to 4 million data sets, right? So data is really important, right? Because otherwise that algorithm is not as powerful. And actually we found that through these data sets, the algorithm is getting richer and more complete. And today Tricog's algorithm is even as compelling or even stronger than some of those larger manufacturers as G's, which is why there's an opportunity to partner. So they're saving lives, and I think the combination of data, the algorithm, and that hardware device is making this like a full stack. So that's one. That's Tricog, and interestingly, actually, while the US is going to be one of the largest markets, they've got emerging markets like Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, even Africa, which are more mirrors of India, right? If you look at India 2 and India 3 in the rural hinterland. So actually, this is actually a global platform, not just for developed markets. So that's Tricog. And interestingly, of the four founding team members, two of them are PhDs from the US. So Diane, and both of them actually incorporated AI into their thesis and around this problem, right? So what is interesting is that even in India, we're seeing this educated talent who have worked and trained overseas who are coming back, trying to make a difference, right? So that was interesting. Another company is Healthify Me, which is interesting, which is more the consumer side. So earlier, typically consumer companies or mobile apps were all about just GMV and downloads and just grabbing eyeballs, right? But today we're seeing even AI impact consumer companies. So Healthify Me, again, interesting founder Tushar used to be investment banker in the US, moved back from New York, and what they do is they become one of India's largest mobile apps for health and fitness, right? So that is the e-commerce or the consumer side. But they've got an application that's powered by AI called RIA. And what RIA has uses facial recognition and AI. And basically, again, it's changing in India, but a large part of India is, sedentary. And of course, now with COVID, or no thanks to COVID, is becoming even more sedentary. So what that basically does is it's learning, about the consumer. You can take online yoga classes, online, fitness classes. But it also learns your nutrition, right? So it's got nutrition coaches. And for example, if somebody is diabetic, it can help predict that and suggest recommendations. So, for example, it would say that you should not eat white rice, only eat white rice 2 times a week because you're diabetic, or it will suggest different forms of food. If you went to a buffet, it would say that, okay, if you've already had the sugar from a normal meal, then you should skip dessert, right? So this AI is basically learning about each consumer, and then not just so it's interesting. Tricog was more about protecting, right? In one sense, you from heart attacks, and this is more predicting and suggesting recommendations, right, to keep you on a lifestyle. So we're seeing, like Yash said, yeah, even in India, we're seeing healthcare really come to the fore and really, become a painkiller versus a vitamin in that sense.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Sanjay, for giving details about the two companies where you are sitting on the board. So I'll basically now ask Yash the question around what are the things that you're seeing as a tailwind in the healthcare sector? You're seeing a lot of obviously data sets being available right now. There is sophistication of models that are there. There is like a lot of AR, VR. There is a lot of new developments that are happening, which are kind of helping in the telemedicine. What kind of tailwinds you think are coming in this space? And I'll ask first you, and then I'll switch on to Sanjay as well.
Great, thanks, Radhesh. So I would put it in three broad areas, right? One is and Sanjay covered this a little bit, so I won't go into too much detail into that. But telehealth and pharma, right? So because people are forced to work from home, and the social distancing, stay-at-home guidelines, etc., preventing patients to go to the hospitals. But they need to talk to their physicians, to their doctors, and what you realize is more and more, like, there are some places you absolutely have to go and see the doctor, but the barriers to actually have a good engaged discussion with your doctors are removed, and technology advancement has gotten us to this place, right? So that's kind of accelerates the use and acceptance of telehealth and telepharma. So there is also a lot of associated with COVID. I'm particularly talking about COVID in this particular case. There is a lot of focus on emotional health way of being, mental health being, etc. Having to talk to somebody and keeping the HIPAA compliance around it. The patient doctor privacy, etc. So there is having these discussions with the doctors while maintaining those privacy, etc., is becoming a very important area to invest in. A lot of investments are going in. So second, which is the healthcare IT and the clinical logistics around it, right? So a lot of different opportunities. Today's healthcare system is broken. In the sense that data is very, very siloed. I'm talking US, and probably you can see severe fragmentation in India's side, but it is still, I would call it broken. Here, Epic and Cerner own all the healthcare data, and there is a lot of, I would say, privacy-related fear that has hampered innovation. But if you want to break through that, you got to bring in a cloud infrastructure. You got to put in that IT infrastructure where privacy is designed in, right? So there is a lot of opportunities where people are waking up because, not having that is hampering innovation, right? So, people are waking up, and hopefully you'll see a lot of acceleration in the cloud infrastructure technology needed for delivering some of these better care solutions that we have been discussing, right? Finally, I think you'll see some acceleration in the medical device that people can use in order to to better measure. Like TriCog is a great example, and that's where the cross-border aspect also comes in very, very helpful, because the healthcare data is almost similar across geographies. So places like India, China, etc., can give you thousands, if not billions, of samples to build your algorithms, train your algorithms, and embed that into the medical devices so that you can comfortably use a small form factor device in home and deliver better care. Right? So these are the places where we see a lot of investments being put in. I would also mention things like elderly care, things like the payment experience between the payer and the payee. It's always a lot of ripe for innovation, investments, as well as figuring out better models to work with. Right, so there's always going to be investments over there. But these are some of the areas that I think, and of course, in this, I'm leaving out the genomics, as well as I'm leaving out the life sciences part of it, because I'm not very qualified to talk about it. But there are plenty of opportunities in those two areas as well. So.
Sure. So thanks, Yash. Sanjay, what do you think are, according to you, the tailwinds that you have been seeing right now?
Sure. Well, obviously, COVID is the biggest headwind, but we'll talk about tailwinds here. I think Yash has covered a couple of those tailwinds, but I'll add, it's interesting. I think one shift that's taking place is that for the longest time, I'm not an expert in healthcare, but a lot of this data, wasn't available. And if it was available, it was with the doctor, or let's say with the end provider, right? I think there has been right from your Apple Watch or to sensors today. Of course, if you can get around regulations, insurance, I think there is a power where the consumer is very aware and they want that information, and today they're getting that, right? I mean, that information is with them, and it's more not having the information, but what you can do with that. What can you do with that data? That's one. I think sensors and IoT, Yash talked about, so a couple of different points. Yash talked about medtech, right? I think medtech, in one sense, can be B2B, but also in terms of everything from consumer bands to Fitbits to the Apple Watch, today integrating like a heart measuring and management device right into your watch, right? The watch has become a personal computer. So in one sense, medtech, in one sense, touches us, right? We are walking around with computers on our wrists. And of course, to B2B medtech, like what TriCog or everything to a GE, ECG and an EMG machine, that's one. Couple of things. I mean, if you look at data, it is really, data by itself is a commodity, right? But what are we doing with the data? So if you look at diagnostics, I think that is going to be a huge area in terms of diagnostic and training. What are the different ways where AI can be applied to measure, predict, and protect us against disease, right? That's one huge area. The other is around, image and facial recognition. I mean, we use it today for, of course, in a different industry, for social apps and for gaming and things like that. But, imagine using it for cancer and diabetes and, of course, heart attacks, right? So I think we're also seeing with this enterprise behavior moving to the cloud. Earlier, biomedical and biotech was kind of nice to have. Today it's become must have, right? I mean, the intersection of computer science and life sciences, like Yash was talking about, it is really becoming intertwined and integrated. They're not really separate fields, but there's learning across. Again, analyzing data sets, whether it is so very interesting. TriCog, for example, in India, the biggest use case is heart attacks. But then if you look at Japan, where, it's one of the, we've got octogenarians, and I think the average age or the mortality is obviously the highest, where people live to typically between 85 to 90. There, the biggest problem is actually strokes more than heart attack, right? So can you use the same technology and the same platform, but for a different use case? So I think, we might see that the same technology and platform applied, like Yash was saying, to different use cases and different verticals.
Got it.
Telemedicine, right? I mean, we are almost ending the first half of this year and we're still in the lockdown phase. And unfortunately, people are talking about a second wave hitting, in Europe and in, the US, God forbid. So telemedicine is taking off, right? Then on the consumer side, which is typically not seen as much tech innovation, we have a company called Beto that looks at diabetes, right? Which is basically everything from, can you have your fun and with your beverage also have chips, but that is, again, for diabetics. So even on the consumer side, on the e-commerce side, we're seeing innovation in healthcare, right? And, can use AI. So it's, again, if you look at an industry like fintech, of course, AI is, again, to predict lending and to predict spending. It's important, but it's a nice to have. In healthcare, I think it makes it a must have. So I think that is the most powerful use case in healthcare, right? Where AI can really be used to predict and protect and save and save lives.
Sure. Thanks, Sanjay. I'll quickly ask a question around. We have 4 minutes left. So a quick question to both of you in terms of now to make more innovations happen. What could be the enabling factors here? Is it investments, or is it government policies, or is it like more enablers for research in this space? So Yash, why don't you get started, and then I'll pose the same question to Sanjay.
I'll try to be very quick with this. So I think right now I would put it in three areas. One is post-COVID. I'm talking about primarily US experience here. Hospitals are really, really struggling. The profit structure is completely disrupted. The people are getting $100K to $1 million bills. You can see the news articles that are coming out there. There will be a lot of defaults. So that entire place will undergo a massive change because primarily right now, COVID, even though there are a lot of people rushing to hospitals, it has disrupted the profit structure. So that's a huge headwind that we all in the healthcare sector need to keep in mind when we're looking at budget. But not only that, but we talk about SaaS business models. Today, healthcare buyers, these are the people who are making purchase decisions, are still not comfortable buying SaaS as a business model. You need to still go through legacy cycles, budgeting, multiple stakeholders, etc. So these are some of the things that healthcare entrepreneurs need to keep in mind, and that's where Arka comes in to really help these entrepreneurs think about these things right from day one. How do you introduce SaaS in an industry that is not very much aware of, or they're not very comfortable with the SaaS buying cycles? And finally, I would kind of put it in this healthcare infrastructure IT. There are a lot of people who are withholding data in their silos, using what I call privacy protectionism in order to kind of release these silos. So you need to invest in healthcare IT, create this data exchange, enable people to, with privacy first, still be able to exchange data, enable those applications that are coming out, and deliver better care. We need to focus with patients in the middle and design around it. And today's healthcare system has been designed with the hospital IT staff in mind. So, that needs to change. You need to design with the patient in mind. So those are some of the things that needs to change immediately.
Sure. Thanks. Sanjay, your quick thoughts on this?
Sure. So I think Yash has covered it well. I'll just add quickly. I think, again, I'm speaking more from the lens from India. But clearly, I think, some kind of insurance reform, right? Like, we're talking about now, you're right, the news article I saw, somebody's come out and emerged from COVID, but he's got a $1 million hospital bill. Just in terms of, where InsurTech and the healthcare system can help, encourage this sector, that's one. Second, I think, corporates have much more involvement of corporates than CVCs, corporate venture capitalists. This is an industry where they can benefit from the most, right? In terms of acquisitions, in terms of using and partnering with AI technologies to help their own customers, right? So that's the second part. So you're right, they've typically not been as tech savvy. So in terms of socializing, evangelizing, I think closer partnership with startups and with VCs, of course. And then I think the third role is we can play a better part. I think we also need to maybe partner with more industry practitioners and also take those risks, or rather back entrepreneurs taking the risks, because there is no better industry where you can really claim that you're changing the world and improving lives, right? I mean, of course, e-commerce is great, but we don't really need another app that is going to deliver us so that we can eat more burgers and, other things. This is really an industry where you can, do greater good, and of course, all of us can have fitter lives. And I would say, Yash brought up an interesting point about mental health and wellness. I think it is not to be overlooked at all. In fact, from a new fund, we're looking at that as a sector. It's huge, right? It's going to get even worse in that sense, or rather, even more important. So I think we also have to keep an eye open and back those innovative ideas and get outside our comfort zone also, and back with the wave of the future. So I think there's going to be the integration of health, mental wellness, and happiness, and literally make the world a better place using AI and technologies.
So one additional area that I would add to that, Sanjay, is the acceleration of robotics within healthcare organization. In order to keep both the staff safe during situations like a pandemic, etc., fully integrated stack solutions that tie very well into the existing workflows within hospitals, and they work alongside humans and hospital staff. This will be great to just relieve the stress that the hospital workers are going through right now. And they're putting their lives at risk, they're putting their lives at danger. So use of robotics is an area that can really help and relieve some of the stress in this industry. So I'm pretty excited about that as well.
Radhesh, just 30 seconds. That's a great point, Yash. I mean, Radhesh, you mentioned gray orange robotics, right? The use case that they went after is obviously industrial automation and automating warehouses, because obviously that was the need of the hour. But I think robotics is very interesting. Everything from serving us food in restaurants to actually helping in the whole stack, right? Because you're going to have more and more stressed healthcare workers, right, who are susceptible, who are putting their lives on the sort of line every day, right? And if you could have robots and automation, that actually B2B automation that helps this, then everybody's winning in that bargain. So that's a great point.
Great. Thank you. I think we have run out of time. Many thanks, Sanjay. Many thanks, Yash, for, I think we had a great panel discussion. Thank you once again.
Thanks for organizing this, Radhesh. Thanks, Sanjay.
Thank you. Good to see you, Yash, and thanks, Radhesh. Thank you.
Thank you.